cannot avoid. So I would like to switch it to online class instead. Okay, no on-site on Wednesday นะคะ so at 12 at noon just log into Meet ค่ะ and we will see each other in Meet นะคะ on Wednesday I'll remind you again ค่ะ the rest of lecture 5 will be in your assignment only it will not be in your final exam after I finish lecture 5หนุ่มๆที่เพิ่งเข้ามาฟังดีๆนะ after I finish lecture 5 I will post the assignment your last assignment in Google Classroom and whenever we start the content for the final I'll let you know but this is for the assignment only and for the two of you that just came in this Wednesday I'd like to have an online class instead นะคะ for online Wednesday โอเคค่ะ let me remind you one more time about the factors that cause the investor from developed countries to less developed countries. In your assignment, I will have one question asking for you to make list of push and pull factors. Push and pull factor that cause the investors to move their production base to less developed countries. Push and pull นะคะ that's the key word make list of push and pull factors when you see the word pull means something that available at the less developed countries something that are very attractive in developed country something that attract the investors to come and invest okay something that attract the investors to come and invest in less developed country so when you see the word pool it refers to something in less developed country for example less recognition of human rights corruption availability of resources weak laws plenty of labor supply something like that these are things that attract the investors to come in like I said recognition of the poor recognition of human rights corruption like weak laws these are bad things for the people but these are the good things for the business right so you can use your own judgment use your own opinion about the things that can attract the investors to come in that's cool now push refer to difficulties that the investor experience within their own country it could be things like recognition of human rights law the expensive labor costs environmental laws that aim to protect the environment these are things that make it difficult to run the business it's good for the people but it's not good for the business that's allค่ะthat's one question right there now moving to this slide ค่ะ one question based on this slide as well keyword is trade barrier the trade barrier there are two strategies that country use under the trade barrier okay two strategies the first one is called quota limit the numbers of products that can enter the country that's quota we can only give certain allowance for the products to be sold in our country that's quota now the next strategy refers to tariff, 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 tax war, custom tax. Tariff, tax war, custom tax. They are in the same category. Okay, they are the things that make the product price increase, make it more expensive, so that the customer would not buy that product. Now, I'll get back to that in a second. Before 1960, cheap products were distributed throughout the world. Okay, cheap products from China enter America, enter other Asian countries. Cheap products from Africa as well, okay, were sent to China, to America, to European countries. Cheap products were everywhere. All right. Most customers prefer to buy cheap products. They were not so interested in the products that produced within their own country, because the products that produce within the countries, the producers produce in low quantities and they charge high price. Sometimes the producer use human hands to produce the products. It takes time for the products to be produced. It requires large scale to produce the product. This is what makes the cost of the products that produced in the countries become more expensive than the import products. Now, I'm going to give case study in Thailand. We have several shoe stores in Thailand that make shoes by hand. Now, it takes time to make one pair of shoes. It requires the maker skill. They have to have certain skill to make the shoes, make the painting, make the colors and things like that. So the time that they spend on making shoes add up into the cost of the shoe. And plus, the local investors, they have lower investment. They produce in low quantity. They purchase more expensive cost of the raw material that cause the shoes that produce within the countries become more expensive. While Nike company in America, they have big investment. They purchase cheap raw materials to produce shoes. They use the machine for the production. The machine can produce quickly. Okay? And then the Nike company, they produce in very large quantity. They have more control over the price of their products. They can make it super cheap. So Nike shoes before 1960 were very cheap. Right? Let's say it's about a few dollars per pair, while Thai shoe could cost up to $10 to $20 per pair. When Nike shoes enter Thailand, of course, Thai people are going to buy Nike shoes because it's brand name. Everybody recognize Nike shoes. And now Nike shoes so cheap. Why buying Thai shoes? A lot of people purchase import products. This caused the local business to collapse. Listen to this carefully. When more people purchase import products because they are cheaper, the local producer could not make profit. Many of them ran out of the business. This makes the people in the country depend more on import products. We all know that the import product cause big leakage of the money from the economic system. Think of it this way, when more Thai people purchase Nike shoes, mean that there's a big leakage of Thai baht to America. We're purchasing the shoes from America. We're making profit for Nike company. We're making profit for America. The money is leaking out from our economic system. If this purchasing of import products continue, the whole country economy may collapse. Like I said, the local producer, they die out. they could not compete with Nike price. They will have to run out. They would run out of their business. No longer stay in the business. So no Thai shoe, only import shoe. Thai people will become very dependent to the import product. Okay, big leakage of the money out there. So by 1960, many countries around the world realized that they experience big leakage of money. People become very dependent on import products. So the government established a few strategies to make the import products become more expensive so that people won't buy it. Like quota. Think of it this way. In the past, Nike shoes enter Thailand at big amount, let's say million pairs of shoes from Nike company. Big supply, right? Million pairs. So the cost of the shoes became very cheap, very affordable for people. But now Thai government said, no, Nike, you can no longer send a million pair of shoes to our country anymore. You can only send 20,000 pair per year. 20,000 pair per year, it means less supplies. When there's less supplies, cost of the products increase. So cost of Nike shoe now increased and became more expensive. Also, when the Nike company realized that they can only send 20,000 pair of shoes to Thailand, they feel like, okay, we can no longer make big profit anymore. We can only send 20,000 pair of shoes. So with this 20,000 pair of shoes, we gotta make sure that we get reasonable profit. We gotta make sure that it covers the cost that we sell, cover the cost of production, cover the cost of transportation, cover the cost of advertisement, okay? Cover our big loss. So they will set up the price at a very high price and sell it. Let's say if Nike company send a million pair of shoes to Thailand, they probably get about 2 million baht. To get 2 million baht, they have to send 1 million pair of shoes. But now they can only send 20,000 pair of shoes. It means that's a big loss of profit for Nike company. If they want to get 2 million baht profit, they're gonna have to make sure that the cost of each pair increase. Okay, they're gonna make sure that they can make closer to 1 million baht. So automatically, instead of selling the shoe at $1, the shoe may cost up to $50 or more, so that they can make closer to 1 million baht profit, as if they were to sell 1 million pair of shoes. Okay, the government again, they set up these quotas just to make the import products more expensive and less attractive, to save the local business. Now, the next strategy, like I said, tariff, tax war, custom tax. Before the product can enter the country, the company have to pay for the allowance so that they can sell their products to the customers. Now, let's say before the product reached to Thailand, the cost of shoe the cost of shoe would be around $5, but custom tax is there, okay, to cross the wall, okay, to cross the border. They're gonna have to pay taxes. The taxes would be about 5% or 10%. It means that the cost of the product will automatically increase once it gets to the country, and it will become more expensive. People won't buy it. So trade barrier is just something that makes the products more expensive so that people won't buy it, so that people will concentrate more on the products that are produced within the country. The local business sector, okay, the local business producer, they will survive. And in a way, if people consume the products that are produced within the country, the money is kept within the country, less leakage. That's all ค่ะ one question. Now I'm going to look at the case study in China. Chinese used to enjoy receiving import products from other countries, but it hurt their economy. Like I said, big leakage of money out from Chinese economic system. Also, the producers, the Chinese producers, could not make much profit. A lot of them ran out of businesses. So, 1960, the Chinese government came up with trade barriers to make import products become more expensive, and also limit types of products and the amount of products that can enter the country. Sounds okay, but then there were a few consequences that happened right after the Chinese government used trade barrier. I'm going to look at the consequences now. The first consequence is that the local producers saw these as opportunities to gain back from what they lost in earlier periods. Like I said, they could not sell much of their products earlier. They could not compete with the import products. But now, the government set up trade barrier, made the import products become more expensive. People now turning their face to the local producers. Local producers saw this as an opportunity to gain back, so they also increased the price of their products. They increased the price of their products to make big profit to cover from what they lost earlier. Now, the problem fall into the customer hands. They're gonna have to handle these expensive products. They cannot turn to the import products because it's expensive. And now the local products are also expensive. It might be, a few baht cheaper than the import product. So the customers are not enjoying the benefits when the country stops cheap products to be sold in the country. Right? That's the first consequence. The second consequence, when the Chinese government limit types of products that can enter the country, the amount of products that can enter the country, the Chinese stop learning. They stop learning about new types of products that are available in the market. They did not learn what's available out there, what kind of technologies that people use out there, what kind of technological improvement, out there. Somewhat, the trade barrier slow down the Chinese progress. It preventing Chinese to learn from what available out there. They became a little backward, going backward. Okay. And later on in 1970, the Chinese government learned that, hey, we should not stop all types of products to enter our country. We should pick, those technological products and allow it to enter our country so that we can learn the new technology. So once again, 1970, the Chinese opened arms more for the technological products so that they can learn more about the new technologies and things like that can help improve their country. That's Chinese case studies. Next type of economic activity, tertiary economic activity. With this one, I will not ask you anything in the assignment, okay, but I'm going to give you a general knowledge of what it is. It refers to selling and buying of both tangible products and intangible products. Tangible products, the type of products that you can touch, you can hold, you can feel, that's tangible products like an object. Intangible products, products that you cannot see but it's there. For example, your specialty, your skill. Some of you are very good at mathematics. You don't see that mathematics skill, but it's there. So you become an accountant. You calculate things for the company. You use your math skill to make things happen in the company. So you're selling your skill for a living. Tourism also offer intangible products like entertainment, pleasure. Sometimes they selling some sort of horrific feeling. Like some people pay to be in haunted house. They pay to be scared. They pay to feel horrified. Right? We don't see that product in the haunted house. We pay to get that feeling, to get the pleasure, to get the entertainment and things like that. So two types of products: tangible products, intangible products. Okay? Dealing with selling and buying of these. In developed countries, listen to this, in the developed countries, most of the manual tasks, manual labors, manual works are done by the technology. If you take a look at people who live in New York, the labor costs are quite expensive. If you live in New York and you want to pay for the nanny or the maid to cook and clean for you, you must be very rich. Okay? Most people who live in big city like that, okay, they prefer to use technologies to get their daily tasks done. For example, they have the washing machine at home. Just put the clothes in the washer and dryers, and then it will, get clean. The dishes in the dishwasher machine, and then it will clean itself. There's microwave oven, there's automatic vacuum cleaner, and things like that. So their daily tasks would be done or conducted by the technology. But in less developed countries, the manual works, the manual labor like this are done by human because of the wages of laborers are still low, very affordable. You hire people to get things done rather than the technology. The technologies are more expensive if you live in a less developed country. Right? So the use of laborers are different in the developed country and less developed country. That's allค่ะคนbe asking as general knowledge, but this is what I will definitely ask, and you take note carefullyนะคะ. I'm gonna go slow. There are two types of countries. The first type refer to developed or less developed country. Okay. Second type, rich or poor country. Two categories. Either a country is developed or less developed, rich or poor. Bear that in mind. Not all developed countries are wealthy, and not all less developed countries are poor. Do not generalize that rich countries are always developed countries. Do not generalize that poor countries are always less developed countries. We are now going to look at factors and criteria that we use to assess type of country. If they are developed or less developed, rich or poor, we are going to look at those criteria. Now guys, before that, let me give you examples. oil producer countries in Middle East, they are wealthy country. Their country make a lot of money from oil production, but their countries are still listed as less developed country. While country in eastern part of Europe, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland and all, those countries are developed countries, but they are poor. That's why, okay, you have to bear that in mind that not all rich are developed and not all poor are less developed. Okay? You have to change your worldview on that because most of the time people like to assume things. Now guys, let's deal with developed and less developed countries. Developed and less developed countries. The major criteria is to look at the demography of the country, or look at the birth rate and death rate. We cover this in the midterm. If the country has high in both birth rate and death rate, definitely this is a less developed country. If the country has low in birth rate and death rate, definitely this is a developed country. So the demography can precisely tell type of a country. It can precisely tell type of a country if it's developed or less developed. I don't think I need to go over this. We went over in the midterm. Now, the next criteria is the people's standard of living. Okay, this criteria is used to confirm that yes, it really is a developed country or less developed country. We use it to confirm. But by looking at the death rate and birth rate, we already know that this is the second type of assessment that we use just to confirm that we are right. Now, the standard of living refer to people comfortability living in their own country. Roughly speaking, we look if people are very comfortable living in their own country, if they feel okay, if they enjoy living in their own country, if they have less burden with the things within their own country. Like for example, if you have access to basic needs, you feel comfortable with it. You have reasonable income, you have job, you can enjoy yourself, you can entertain yourself, you have less worries, you feel less oppressed. That means you have high standard of living. A reasonable standard of living. The next criteria is to look at the recognition of human rights concept. Recognition of human rights concept. If everyone in the society understand the human rights concept and respect one another right, protect one another right, this country is a developed country. Next criteria that we use to confirm type of a country is the distribution of income. Distribution of income. If everyone in the country have equal access to income, it means that people are going to be very comfortable. It means that the government are effective in making people let's say, distribution of income itself means if it's equal, if everyone have equal distribution of income, that means you are not much different than your neighbors. You are not much different than others. People are not going to be very jealousy towards one another. They're not going to envy one another. They're going to live with one another in peace and in harmony. And the government can actually make that happen. Make sure that there's no gap between the rich and the poor. Everyone enjoy the benefits that they have in the society. The next criteria that we look, if the country is developed and less developed, นะคะไล่แบบหนึ่งอะไรหายไปอันหนึ่ง something missing แห่งวันนะคะอะไรหายไปอันหนึ่งเดี๋ยว let me type ก่อน so that I can see it clearly when I type อันแรกคือ ก็เนี่ย better to write okay access to quality infrastructure if roads have good quality water have good quality clean electricity is stable yes this is a developed country okay. Number 2, 3, 4, and 5 are just a confirm. But with number 1, it can already tell if the country is developed or less developed. Okay, now, the next type of country, rich and poor, we look at GNP. Okay, we look at GNP. We look at GDP. Lastly, we look at types of economic activity. These 3 things must be considered all together at the same time to find out if the country is rich or poor. We cannot only look at GDP, GNP, or type of economic activity. We have to look at all of them all together at one time. Okay, look at them. Consider all these things together at one time. Now, slide. I am going to go into detail about GNP. Pay note carefully. Gross National Product. Gross National Product is the number that we collect from people who earn income and pay taxes. The GNP number is actually from the citizen of the country. The citizen of the country who earn income and pay taxes. Or the citizen of the country that register that yes, I have a job, I am earning some money, that income will be used to calculate GNP. Now, in developed countries, the GNP number is more accurate than the less developed countries. If you take a look at America, everyone registered with the government if they have a job and how much money they make. They pay taxes to their government. And people in the developed country, they feel very comfortable paying taxes to their own country. They feel comfortable revealing if they have a job or not. Okay? They know that taxes will be used to improve their own country, improve infrastructures, improve the basic needs. They see the result that their taxes are returning back to them. Think of it this way, guys. A lot of people who live in less developed countries, they feel like they don't want to report to the government if they have a job or not. Because if they report to the government, they're going to have to pay taxes. They do not trust their government. They don't know if their taxes money will be used reasonably or not, will be used to improve things in the country or not. Like example, Thailand. Every time when I pay taxes, I feel like, man, where's my money go? Is it gonna go to the healthcare improvement or not? If it's gonna go to the infrastructure improvement or not? I do not see the result from the taxes that I pay. I don't trust my government that they are going to use my money wisely. I don't see anything coming back from my taxes. If possible, I would avoid telling the government if I have a job or not. Because if I tell the government that I have a job, automatically they're going to tax me. So in less developed countries, most people try to avoid reporting to the government if they have a job so that they can avoid paying taxes. Like I said, they do not trust their own government. They don't see if they can get anything back from their taxes or not. In Thailand, we have numbers of people who avoid paying taxes. The street vendors outside of university, the noodle shops, the small restaurant, they do not report to the government that they have this kind of business so that they don't have to pay taxes. The motorcycle taxis, many of them are not registered. The taxi drivers, they're not registered, but they earn income. The street vendors, the somtam ladies, they earn income. And the construction workers as well, they earn income, but they're not paying taxes. Still, many people in the developed countries, they earn some income. They're not paying taxes. So their income will not appear in the GNP. If we take a look at Thai GNP, we might see that it's quite low. But in fact, if we were to include the street vendors people, the motorcycle taxi, the taxi driver people, we may have higher GNP. So the numbers of GNP in the developed country is not trustable. Cannot rely on that. While in developed countries, like I said, people are more comfortable telling the government what kind of job they have, how much they earn. They're willing to pay taxes because they see the result of taxes. Okay, that's why the developed countries have more accurate GNP. Another thing is that in developed countries, most of the payments are done through transaction. Most of the payments are done through transaction. It means that people make payments through credit card, check, mobile phone banking. So all the payments are recorded. When it comes to paying taxes, there's an evidence in the record showing if you are earning income or not. It's very difficult for a business sector in developed countries to avoid paying taxes And so that income is more accurate. And this income is used to calculate GNP. While if you look at less developed countries, most of the payments are done through cash. Just before COVID-19, we use cash to make payment for things. Not all the stores except the mobile phone banking transferring the money. Very rare you can find places like that. You have to carry cash to make payment and everything. By using cash, you can easily avoid, tell you the truth, you can cover your income. Like in the restaurant, when it comes to reporting how much they make to the government to pay tax, they only reveal the income that they receive from the credit card, from the check, and they are not telling the truth that, hey, I also receive cash money as well. They're not revealing how much cash they receive from the customer. Because if they reveal everything, they're going to have to pay high taxes. Right? That's why I said in less developed countries, we can never have accurate GNP. Because people are going to try to find a way to avoid paying taxes. And in the restaurant, like I said, nobody wants to show to the government that they make big money. They always say that they made a big loss. They're not making much money, so that they don't have to pay high taxes. Now, as I mentioned in the beginning, that GNP is calculated from the income that the citizens earn and pay taxes. So it doesn't matter if the citizen is earning the income within the country or outside of the country. That income will be used to calculate GNP. For example, if you are Thai, having your factory in Laos, producing something in Laos, it's not within Thailand, right? You have your factory in Laos. But the profit that you make from this factory in Laos and your income that you make from this factory will be used to calculate GNP. It doesn't matter where you are. Only if you report to the government that you have income and pay taxes, let's say your income will be used to calculate GNP. Mostly, listen to this, mostly big companies that have their production base or have their office base outside of the country, they have to report to the government. They cannot avoid telling the government that they are earning income. But the individual can easily hide their income more. For example, if I were to resign from MUIC and move to the US to earn some living over there, I will still carry Thai citizen. Okay? I will still carry Thai citizenship, but I may become a server, serving in the restaurant in the US. If I'm not telling the government, my income will not, the amount of income that I make will not be used to calculate GNP. It will only be used to calculate Thai GNP if I report to the government and pay taxes. But most of the time, when the individual work outside of the country, they feel like, I'm not using Thai facilities, I'm not using the infrastructure in Thailand, why should I pay taxes to Thai government? So the individual mostly are not telling how much they make when they work abroad. They tend to keep it secret. But some citizens can be very genuine. They may thought to themselves that, well, even though I'm working abroad, but eventually after I retire, I may want to go back home and die and in my home country. Okay? But when I go home, I want to make sure that I have access to basic need, basic infrastructure that the government provides for me. So I might pay taxes now. So when I return home, I can tell to the government that, you know what, when I was younger, I worked abroad, but I've been paying for the social security. Okay, I've been paying for social security fees. I've been paying taxes. So what kind of benefit can I get as a citizen? Now I am returned. I'm back home. You will automatically have those benefits. Okay, just like the other that live in your own country. But if you're not paying any taxes, you're not paying any social security. Once you return home, you may not have access to basic needs like the others. You may have a more difficult life coming back to Thailand. Once again, for big companies, it's very hard to hide your income from the government. When you establish your business outside the country, most of the time you still need the support from your government. If something happens to your business abroad, the government will be able to help you right away if you report to them. They will give, they'll let's say, if you have a factory in Burma, and turns out that the Burmese government disturb you, they give a hard time to you and things like that. You might report to the Thai embassy in Burma that, hey, the Burmese are giving me a hard time, the Burmese government are taking advantages of me. So after you report to the embassy, then the embassy will automatically report to the government and asking the Thai government to negotiate and try to settle the problem for you. So there are a lot of benefits from telling the government what kind of income you make, what kind of production you make abroad, so that the government can give you the support. So once again, GNP, the income that people earn, doesn't matter if you are in the country or outside of the country. Your income will be used to calculate GNP. Next point, GNP cannot explain the distribution of wealth within the country. It cannot really tell that everyone has access to wealth, or everyone has equal access to wealth. It cannot tell that everyone in the country are comfortable with their financial situation. Back to Arab Emirates or Dubai, city of Dubai. This city alone have contribute to a super high GNP for the country. We may assume that everyone in Dubai are wealthy, happy, live good life. If you really look into the reality, you will see that the rich people are the minority. Majority of the people still suffer from low standard of living. They still earn less than $2 per day. There's a big gap between the rich and the poor. So even if the country has super high GNP, doesn't mean that everyone is wealthy. In the case of Arab Emirates, the money remains in the hands of about 5% of the people in the country. 95% of the people are still poor, less access to income. So GNP can only tell the country is wealthy, but it cannot tell if everyone is wealthy. It cannot tell that everyone has equal access to wealth or distribution of wealth. Okay. GDP มีใครถามอะไรเรื่อง GNP ไหม Anybody have question about GNP you may come to me after ได้นะคะ GDP Gross Domestic Product before I go into detail I like to let's say point out something important for you to basically notify in the near future. GNP is often used by the government to, not speaking, the government always use GDP to fool people. They use it to create positive image for themselves. They use GDP as a political tool, to make themselves look smart, look like they are so effective, so efficient, and things like that. Like recently, our government came out and told Thai people that, our economy is doing so well. You know what? This year, our GDP increased by 7%. We are doing so well. So please allow us to continue being your government. Please give us support. Please elect us again next season. All right. Look at the GDP. It's growing. We are doing so well. That's why I said that GDP is often used by the politicians to play politics. Use it to fool us, to make us believe that our economy is doing so well. If you go interview the small shopkeepers or the business sector, ask them, are you making profit? Do you have enough customers? They will all complain that they're not making big sale right now. They're making less profit. Or the raw materials are expensive. They have less customers. Customers are very careful of using their money. That's the reality. So the GDP cannot really tell that if the economy is doing so well and people are enjoying the economy or not. It cannot tell us that. It's just a political tool, right? Now guys, GDP, Gross Domestic Product. It's the number from the productivities that the country produce. It comes from the productivities that we produce within the country. Let's say, it does not consider who produced the products. Okay? We do not look if the productivity here is produced by the citizen of the country, or if this set of productivity is produced by the foreign investor within our own country. We don't care who produced these productivities, as long as it produced within our country. The productivity will be used to calculate GDP. Unlike GNP, the income that the citizen make outside of the country will be used to calculate GNP. But GDP, we don't look at anything outside of the country. We only look things within our own country. We do have Thai people that have factories and businesses out there outside of Thailand. But we do not look at their productivity. We don't look at them because they're not in Thailand. We only look at products that produce within Thailand, regardless of who produces it. Foreigners who are the citizen of the country. This could be a problem. Okay? Think of it this way. If the majority of the productivities are produced by the citizen of the country, we can maybe say that, well, this year our economy is doing well because we have very high GDP. Only if the majority of productivities are produced by the citizen of the country. But most of the time, the productivities are actually owned by the foreigners. Then how do we know if the benefits or if the profit still remain in our country? Let's take an example of Thailand once again. At the moment, Thai government said that, you know what, we have very high GDP. We have big amount of productivity that we produce this year. The government would say that. But if you look in detail, 20% of the productivities are produced by the citizen. 80% of the productivities in Thailand this year are produced by foreign companies. Companies from Japan, from Germany, from China, from European countries. Think of it this way, guys. These foreigners, they are using our country as their production base. Once they make money, once they make profit, they are not going to keep those profits within our own country. They are sending out to their mother country. That's a big leakage of money from our economic system to other countries. And it is super difficult, super hard to find out how much these foreign companies send back, then the profit back to their mother country. They do not tell us. The Japanese company, Nissan, Honda, Toyota, yes, they do have production base in our country. But whenever they make profit, they send the majority of their profit back to their mother country. We do not know how much remain in our country, how much profit remain in our country. Then how can we say that if the GDP is high, our economy is doing well? How can we say that? Let me put in numbers. นี่นะ Let's say Thai GDP this year we have an increase of 7%. And I'm just going to use simple number นะคะ just to make you see the picture better ครับนะ Let's assume นะคะ this is the GDP ก็คือ productivity นั่นเอง It increased by 7%, and let's assume that this year our GDP is 5 million for the productivity. It may seem like we are doing so well, it's increasing, and the amount of productivity is high. But in reality, maybe only 100 belong to Thai. Okay. This 100 of productivity is owned by Thai citizens, but the rest are owned by foreigners. With this 100,000 productivity, the value of it นะคะ just the value of it may be just about 2,000 baht. assume นะคะ and the productivity that owned by the foreigners the value of it from these 4 million something เนี่ย maybe the value of it is about นะคะ now take a look at the numbers these citizens the value that they produce is about 200 baht and these 200 baht 2,000 baht here will be kept within Thai economic system it will be here that's our real benefit but productivities that owned by the foreigners the value is about 700,000 baht we can hardly find out within these 700,000 baht how much it remains. There's a possibility that the foreigners they may send most of these 700,000 out to their mother country. We may have only 1,000 value left. So if they send most of their money, their profit out, it means that we only have 3,000 baht value within the country this year. These 3,000 baht values cannot tell us that our economy is doing well and we are okay. The numbers that the government is telling us are not reflecting the truth. It's not showing the truth to us. Like I said, they said that the government said that the GDP is increasing. We are now having more productivity. We are doing so well. Our economy is expanding. But they did not, they most of the time don't mention how much we get the money that is from these foreign companies. And they never show us how much remain in our country. 3,000 baht value means nothing to our economy. It really means nothing to our economy. But they're not showing us that. That's why I said most of the time they use GDP to play politics, to fool us. They are enforcing fake reality to us. They are enforcing false or fake reality to us. This is what I'm trying to say is that they are telling us that, whoa, economy is doing well, we are doing okay, we fine. That is a false reality. They're trying to make us believe in what they're telling us. But in fact, the real situation, the real reality is not that way. We are suffering. We are not receiving anything from the economy. We are not, enjoying what the economy is doing right now. But the government, they are making a new reality. They enforce that belief on us, right? So be careful on this when you listen to the government. Now, there are a few more things. ลืมไปเลย Oh, I did not put GDP in here. Just have to take note yourself. I was going to say something. Flip out of my mind. Anyway. จำไม่ได้ Moving on ค่ะ Your next question นะคะ I would like to ask criteria that we can use to classify if a country is an agricultural country or industrial country. What kind of criteria that we can use? And why we should not use numbers and types of labors to define type of a country. Why we should not use types of labors and numbers of labor to define type of a country, if it is agricultural country or industrial country. That's the question. Oh, now I remember. I'll answer that question in a second. Now I remember. It came back. Benefits of having foreign investor.เห็นใช่ไหมMost of less developed countries, they really like these foreign investors. They believe they can gain much benefit from these investors. The first benefit, job opportunity for their people. Take an example of Thai government again. We are consider ourselves as a democratic country. And Lung Tu, our prime minister, thought that he's a Democrat, which he's not. Anyway, it's the government duty to provide job opportunities for people. But the government cannot jump into a business and open a business and hire people like that. They're not a communist country. They're not a communist. You know, we don't have a communist system here. So government Lung Tu cannot open a business and, you know, like restaurant or factories and things like that. He cannot generate job opportunities that way. Unlike the communists. The communists, they can open the restaurant, they can open the businesses, and then use the benefits of profit from what they make to give back to people. They can do that, but democratic government cannot do that. Anyway, when we have foreign investors coming in, we will be able to make more job opportunities for people. Because these foreign investors, they have bigger capital to invest in business. If they were to invest in our country, they would not concentrate on small scale business. They would concentrate on large scale business. Like the Japanese company that they have their factories in Thailand, Samut Prakan, Samut Songkhram. Every time when they come, they have a few thousand jobs open for Thai people. But if the government were to concentrate on Thai investors, most of Thai investors, they have very small capital. They only concentrate on small to medium scale type of business. There will only be a few hundred jobs opportunities available for Thai if we encourage more local investors to step into business. But with the foreign investor, they have more capital. If they were to have a business, they would hire more people. There will be more job opportunities for Thai people. Now the next one is opportunities for raw material producer in the countries to sell their products directly to the factory. Direct นะคะ raw material producer เขา use a short version นะ Think of it this way. If you produce pineapple and you want to export your pineapple to the global market, you're going to have to have, you're going to have to learn new language in order to communicate with your customers. You're going to have to go through all kinds of paperwork to get permit to export your pineapple. You're going to have to search for the market and try to sneak yourself into the market to get the market share. You're going to have to come up with all kinds of advertisement strategy to attract your customers. You're going to have to learn about logistic process, how it's done, how much it costs. You're going to have to learn more about international business laws. And think of the farmers in less developed countries. How are they going to deal with all those things that I just mentioned? So most of the time, the farmers did not have a chance to sell their products in the global market because of all these difficulties. But now, if the government encourages foreign producers to come and produce in the less developed countries, the raw material producer within the country can sell their product directly to these factories without having to go through the logistic process, laws, permit to export the product. It saves a lot of work and a lot of time, saves a lot of energy. So if we have more foreign factories here, this gives opportunity for farmers, like a raw material producer, to sell their products and earn reasonable living. All right. And at the same time, if we sell raw materials to these foreign companies, it is the same as if we were to export it. This is a new kind of exporting the products. We are not delivering the products abroad. We just have to deliver the products to the factories, to the foreign factories within our own country. You see now that we are bringing the export into our own home country. Like if you were to sell your pineapple to European factories, you're going to have to deliver the products over there and go through all kinds of difficulties. But now the foreign factory is here. You can export it within your own country, right? That's the benefit, giving more chances for the producer, the raw material producer, to sell their products. The next benefit, a country can learn how to operate the industry and what type of technology when we have more foreign producers in our country, we can learn how to operate the industry, and we can learn what type of technology that they use for the production. So we are hoping that in time we will learn more and be ready to establish our own industry and no longer have to depend on these foreigners. So we use them to come and teach us. And we learn how they operate, what kind of technology that we can use to produce the products. The next one, taxes. We charge taxes from these foreigners. You can say it as permit. They have to pay to be in our own country. That's taxes, right? Or somehow we call it as permit. To get the permit, you gotta pay something. You gotta pay the fees. So if we have more foreigners, the produce things in our country, that means we can charge more taxes. Right? This is the benefit that we can get, the taxes. That's all. I'm moving on to the next part. Geographer. A lot of geographers are suggesting that if we want to know if the country is an agricultural country or industrial country, we should look at numbers and types of labor in the country. They are making a big mistake right there. They're giving us suggestion, look at the numbers of workers, look at the numbers of, look at the type of workers. It can easily tell us, but I'm telling you now, they are making a big mistake. Case study 1, take a look at this one. Country A, if you take a look at it, in general, in agricultural sector, they have about 500 farmers. Industrial sector, they have about 1,000 workers. So if you look at these numbers based on the geographer criteria, you probably say that, well, this is an industrialist country because they have more workers in the industrial sector. But guys, there are hidden workers or invisible workers that work in each sector. Like over here, guys, even though agricultural sector may appear that it has only 500 workers, but in reality, there might be 200 child workers working in agricultural sector, and also 500 illegal workers who work in agricultural sector. The child laborers and the illegal workers, they are there. They are the ones that help produce agricultural products, just that they are not appear in the system. But it doesn't mean that they are not there. It doesn't mean that they are not contribute to the increase in productivity. So what we see, we only see this. We are not seeing the highlighted here. Okay, we only see the numbers 500 and 1,000 over here. And that's a big mistake. Like I said, there's a hidden numbers, invisible workers out there that work and produce the products, the child labor and illegal labor. So if we were to combine illegal workers and child labor with the official workers, turns out that agricultural sector would have about 1,200 workers. So this means that this country could be an agricultural country. Case study number 2. Don't look at the one below. Case study number 2. When we look at the number, we may assume that, well, this is an agricultural country because they have more workers in the agricultural sector than industrial sector. But guys, the hidden fact, even though the industrial sector have only 50 people, but the productions may come from the technology. The machines produce the products. So the factory may have one machine that produce as if they were to have 1,000 workers. So one machine is equivalent to 1,000 workers. So if the company were to have 5 machines, that means, imagine it this way. If the company have 5 machines, that means 5,000 workers. If we really want to use the worker as the criteria, then you can now see that this country is actually an industrialized country. The use of technology is the hidden fact that we need to also consider, or we need to look at. to find out if the country is really agricultural country or industrialized country. Okay. Now, the best criteria that we use to assess if the country is agricultural country or industrialized country, we look at these three criteria. Very important right here. Capture. These are the three major criteria that we consider. We cannot use only one of these. We have to use the three of these all together at one time to assess type of a country. Cannot break it apart. You have to consider all these three things at the same time. All right. First, we look at the productivity that each sector produce. How much agricultural sector produce? How much industrial sector produce? We gotta look at that. And that's not enough to tell a type of a country. We also have to look at who produce those productivity in each sector. Who produce it in each sector? อย่างงงนะอย่าเพิ่งงงนะ Who produce it? If the majority of the productivity is produced by the foreigners, that means เอางี้ เอา put in number แล้วกันนะคะ เอา put in numbers. Let's take a look at the first case. Can by that mean first case, let's say agricultural sector 70% by foreigners and 30% produced by locals, industrial. Let's say 80%. Or 20% by local. We look at who owns the productivity. For agricultural sector, 70% are owned by the foreigners, 30% are owned by the locals. Industrial sector, 80% owned by the foreigners, 20% owned by the locals. Turns out that right now, agricultural sector produce more productivities than industrial sector. Bear that in mind. We don't care how much foreigner produce. We only care for what our local people, our citizen produce. So we only compare between the 30% and 20% here. Yeah. We only look at this, what the local people make in both sectors. Turns out that the local people here own 30%, and it's more than here in the industrial sector. So more likely now that this country could be an agricultural country. But it's not certain. We're gonna have to look at the third criteria, the value of the productivity. The value of the productivity. As I mentioned, agricultural sector, 30%, right? Owned by the citizen. the value of agricultural sector could be around with 30%. The value of it would be around 1,000 baht or value, 1,000 baht value. And industrial, the productivity is 20% that owned by local ใช่ไหม but the value, even though it's only 20%, but the value would be, so this is the final answer. This country is actually an industrialized country because the industrial sector offer more value of income for this country. That's why I said you cannot just look at one thing here, number one. Or number two, you have to look at all together at one time. Like I said, first, you look at the amount of productivity as each sector produce, and then you break it down. Who produce what, at how much. And then you break it down again to the values, find out the values. This country is depending on industrial sector to produce their main income. This is the best criteria to find out if it is an agricultural country or industrial country. Now, another example here. The country may produce 500 tons of rice and only 10 tons of machine. But if you look at the value, 500 tons of rice is equal 50,000 baht. Very small amount. But only 100 tons of machines. Only 100 tons of machine, a lot lesser than the productivity from the agricultural sector. But the value is 1 million baht. That means the industrial sector is our main source of income. That's all for today. If you have question, please come to me now.